then if people can just raise their hands and perhaps tell us your name and if it's relevant, where you're from and what your interest is. You, sir, first?
Charles
We
Reeves.
can perhaps take a couple of questions to make it easier. So we'll take your question first, sir, and then yours.
Charles Reeves. The first thing I'd like to stress is that this line is not going through my back garden. My concern for the thing is that I'm going to be one of the people that are going to be paying for it, i.e. a taxpayer. And it seems to me that when I listen to the government side of this, or those in favour of it, they might mention the cost of the manufacture or the building of this thing, but what is going to interest most people is how much are the tickets going to cost, and, as I suspect, how much or what proportion of the true cost of the ticket is going to be paid by the taxpayer. Now, unless those things have been worked out, I don't think that the pro HS2 people should really be pushing the issue unless they are sure that it is truly going to be an economic thing. Obviously, we need high-speed or effective transport. No one would deny that. But is it going to be wildly uneconomic? So, to basically trim that down to an answerable question, have you worked out the cost to the taxpayer and to the passenger of one ticket?
My name is Clive Birch. I live in Burton Green, although it's 1 mile from where the proposed route goes through. So I'm not really directly affected by the line itself. Like the gentleman here, obviously, I am a taxpayer. What I'd like to sort of ask really is that we keep referring to high-speed rail. What exactly do you call the Virgin line already? There's 140 mile an hour potentially. How fast do you want to go really? When we talk about going from Euston to Birmingham in 49 minutes, I believe that actually goes to the international, not Birmingham itself.
It's 49 minutes to New Street.
To New Street?
To New Street.
Okay. So, but if you take the existing sort of line and knock out, say, Coventry and Hemel Hempstead and Watford Junction, you can get there even now with 125 mile an hour lines in about 20 minutes more. So why are we paying all this money for 20 minutes? I'd also like to find out why, with Chiltern Railways investing their own private money, why the government is investing my money in competition with somebody else trying to solve the same problem. Thank you.
Paying for it, and if you only had shore economics. Well, if you had shore economics, there would be private sector companies queuing up to build railways in our country. There hasn't been a private sector company queuing up to build a railway in our country since Victoria sat on the throne, and some of those went bankrupt at the time. Are we really suggesting that we shouldn't have built the Great Western Railway? Because the economics might not have been sure. The same arguments would have been put and were put, and I can just remember them, against ever building the Channel Tunnel. Why on earth are we doing this? It doesn't stack up in a sure and economic fashion. Why are we building the Channel Tunnel? Government has to step in where the private sector cannot provide the kind of infrastructure that is necessary for the overall well-being of the economy. If government doesn't step in, it doesn't get done. And we therefore fall behind, and we become even more so, and we are slipping back. I mean, let's not be complacent with this. Britain is struggling to remain competitive. Our manufacturing industry is tending to get pulled not only to the Far East, but into the Franco-German border as well, where there is a weight of industry that gives them a skill base that tends to attract the investment and the jobs. We need government to be able to make these investments, or they won't get made, and we simply fall behind.
In answer to the two specific questions, the West Coast Main Line is high speed, as is the East Coast Main Line. 125 miles an hour is the European sort of bottom of high speed trains. In terms of ticket price, and treat this number with caution, because it depends on how you value capital and a whole load of other things. But it's being calculated that if it was private, if it was unsubsidised, the return from Birmingham would be £370. I think the problem is that ultra-high speed is no longer either economic or environmentally friendly. Another project which is high speed, along with the Channel Tunnel, is Concord, and it didn't stack up economically or environmentally. You know, we don't travel at 140 miles an hour down the motorway. If we were allowed to, we wouldn't do, because fuel is so expensive. It's not economic to do that, apart from being very environmentally unfriendly. So, you know, the world has changed, and there are other ways. We can skip a generation and move forward to other technologies and not go down the same dead ends that European countries are beginning to discover, and even China beginning to discover with their high-speed rail network. Sure, there are a couple of lines that worked. Lyon to Paris is one, and Barcelona to Madrid. None of the others have proved very effective at all, and we should learn from their lessons, particularly the Dutch experience, the one that's nearly bankrupt, and say, hey, this doesn't work, there are better ways of doing it, and let's improve the existing system to benefit more people, so that more people can get to their destination more quickly and in a more environmentally friendly way.
Jerry, how do you justify this notion that the ticket price, which is a crucial concern really, would be £370?
Well, it's just a question of doing the sums, really. If you look at the total capital cost, if this were a private venture, that is how much you would need to do. You need to charge. But of course, it wouldn't work like that, because no one would travel on it. So it has to have government subsidy, which is why Europe are subsidising high-speed rail to the tune of 42 billion a year. That's how it has to work. Bob raised a good point about motorway congestion, but it isn't going to. HS2 will not have a big impact on motorway travel. People are not going to shift from roads to rail to that great extent. What might have more impact is improving all the services, like electrifying the line to Cardiff, electrifying the Midlands Main Line, improving things for commuters in the southeast. There are lots of ways in which we can improve things for more people. That will have more impact on motorway congestion.
Bob, ticket prices first of all.
Well,
How do you respond to Jerry's point?
we subsidise an awful lot of public transport. We subsidise the buses. In many places, some of the main routes the government don't get subsidised, or anything that goes out into the country areas requires a subsidy. We subsidise the buses in London. We subsidise a lot of our public transport infrastructure. If we don't, we drive people off it, and we either stop them from travelling, and therefore we stop them from being economically active, or we put them on the roads and we wind up having to build more roads which are not cheap in themselves. Can I just tackle this issue that high-speed rail is not environmentally friendly? We are going to have to move to low carbon, and the only way that we can do that, unless somebody invents the fuel cell that they've been promising us for the last 50 years, the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to green the grid and go electric. Now, if there is some kind of scientific breakthrough so that we can run cars off of water and put hydrogen off hydrogen and put water out the exhaust pipe, wonderful. There's nobody who will welcome that more than I, but it hasn't come yet. So we're going to have to green the grid, and we're going to have to wind up travelling electrically. We're going to wind up, whether we like it or not, and I've been a sceptic on nuclear power, but we're going to have to wind up rebuilding those nuclear power stations. Either that or the lights are going to go off. Because already 35% of the gas that we use in this country comes from Qatar in the Middle East, and the rest of it will wind up as we run down our energy resources coming from Russia. Want to depend on Putin? Then, fine, get on with it. We are going to wind up having to green the grid and go electric. It's the only way that we can.